We are joined today by the lovely Juliana and Gary. And before I butcher any sort of introductions about that, Juliana, for the audience who may not know you, as they well should, could you go briefly over your background and why you might be appearing on Burning Questions today?
Why, sure. Thank you, Ryan Kovar. Juliana Vida. In brief, I'm the Chief Strategy Advisor for Splunk's public sector. Some people call me an evangelist, a technology evangelist, and I come from a full career as a military officer and a civil servant before coming to Splunk. So looking forward to the burning questions and everything else that's on tap for us today.
Wonderful. And Gary, I don't think you need much of an introduction, but just in case there's anyone out there who's been under a rock, please.
I am the new CEO of Splunk. I've been on board a little over 7 months now and loving every moment of it.
Wonderful. And for those who don't know, I'm Ryan Kovar, who just handed myself off to myself for this very segment. Before I came to Splunk, I had about 20 years of public sector experience as well, serving in the US Navy and UK public sector and a variety of other places like DARPA. So I can't thank you two enough for being the warm-up act tomorrow for myself and my team at GovSummit. And one of the reoccurring themes that we keep having at Splunk and just globally, as I've been traveling the world talking to customers, is around cyber resiliency. Now, Juliana, you and I know that we've been doing cyber resiliency in the DoD for 20 years. When I was in the Navy, we had to deal with things like if a missile hit the port side of the ship, would we have the ability to continue network operations on the other side of the ship, on the starboard side? Later on, it turned into if the Cisco router went down due to adversary action, would we be able to get the flight plans out for the Gulf area of responsibility? With the new update of the NIST publication, it feels like everywhere I go, I'm hearing about cyber resiliency. So Gary, starting with you, could you kind of define what you think cyber resiliency is to ourselves, to our customers, and why it's so important?
Yeah, I think this is the top priority for everybody today, is how do you ensure that no matter what happens, that you can deal with the issue, you can detect, you can respond, and you can drive the resilience across the organization. We do obviously a lot of work in the public sector, we do a lot of work with commercial organizations, and everyone is talking about resiliency these days.
And Juliana, with your background in public sector and the work you're doing constantly with our public sector customers, how does this align with what you're seeing and doing?
Well, I think similar to what Gary was talking about and what you were saying, that cyber resiliency is everywhere. I would just say similar to, mental health is health, cybersecurity is security, cyber resilience is resilience. It's business resilience, mission resilience. It's the world we live in that's so digitized that truly means that every part of a business or an organization, particularly for the public sector, we're organizations, not for-profit businesses. Every single element of organizations and agencies now needs to be looking at and enhancing their ability to execute their mission on this cyber resiliency, because it is part and parcel to every system we use and every decision that we make.
Makes sense. And for the public sector world, the one that we came from, APT tends to be the ones that we think of a lot whenever regarding to disrupting resiliency. Now, Gary, I've always had a bit of a crush on First Point because I think they've always done phenomenal APT work, and it's obviously been something that you've been deling with for your last 20 years. You met with about 100 plus customers since you've been here, the CISOs that you're around. How do you think the APT landscape has changed since COVID and the Russian-Ukraine conflict in this lens of cyber resiliency?
I think in this uncertain geopolitical environment that we're living in, I think everyone is on top concern, top priority, because no one really knows what will happen. Will there be broader spillover from the actions in Ukraine? I don't think any of us know. And I think the most important thing that everyone can do is to be ready for what could happen and to ensure that resiliency is in place if there are events that we need to deal with. I just think there's just a level of uncertainty today that's just the world we're living in. And we have to be able to build those defenses that enable us to be resilient no matter what happens.
Yeah, I can say when I've been in Europe the last couple of months, talking to customers has come up quite a bit. One of the big questions I've had is, are the Russians, why haven't they been bigger? Why haven't they done more here? Why haven't they done more there? And it's, part of this is area of, how they're trying to restrain operations, how they're not, but it's been a fascinating area. And one of the customers that really talked about this a lot when I've been traveling, Juliana, of course, is public sector. And now that you're focused on them from the other side of the fence, how do you think they've adapted to these new challenges, Juliana, especially with the movement to the cloud? Something I never thought I would see organizations like the US government saying we have a 1-year plan to move, and now they're like, we're doing it in 6 months.
Yes. So that's actually the biggest change that I've seen, is that things that literally 7-8 years ago, when I was still in the Pentagon and in those meetings with the CIOs of the services and across the DoD, at that time it was, the DoD will never go to commercial cloud. Forget it. Don't even come talk to us. And now look how things have changed. So that's one thing, is the adoption of commercial technologies that have the right security levels and have the right certifications. The second thing is an openness of sharing across and even within organizations, learning from each other, talking to each other, and with industry. That was another thing that not even a decade ago was kind of verboten. At a certain level, there was an expectation that you and the DoD will not spend your time talking to a vendor or to industry. And now, thank God, that's different, because that's where the collaboration and the partnership, that's where the continued evolution and modernization will come.
And we've seen this private-public partnership expand in just the last 2 years. Serge has been one of the liaisons for Splunk for something called JCDC, which I think a lot of the viewers know. Gary, you were just talking about these subjects in Aspen, in New York, on behalf of the Aspen Cyber Summit. What are your thoughts on these private-public partnerships?
Yeah, I'm a big believer that the cyber industry needs to be cooperating with the public sector organizations. And I think the work that Ryan, you and your team are doing with JCDC is a really good example of that. And what I'm excited about is our ability, if something comes out as some big vulnerability or something, we can help operationalize that and drive that out to all of our customers, so everyone's not unpacking what CIS is telling them, and that we can be a really good partner, engaged and cooperating, given this world we live in. As Juliana was talking about, this move to cloud, it's awesome, but attack surface is huge right now. So with that broad attack surface, I think we all need to be thinking broadly about resilience and how we can cooperate to be a good partner with public sector organizations to drive better outcomes and better resilience. So I'm just frankly a big fan, and I feel like we're at the beginning of our journey in terms of public-private cooperation, but I think we're making some really important steps, and I really appreciate all the work that Ryan, you're doing in your team in cooperation through JCDC.
It's really been phenomenal to me. Like I said, coming from the government, Juliana, you hit on it exactly. Like, we were never incentivized to work with private sector. And I will say also partly the world has changed, where before the government had all the answers. Now the private sector has a lot more of the information than they used to. So everyone has to share across, but there's still I would say a very specific difference when I look at how I would defend a commercial entity and a public sector entity. I think there's unique challenges and there's unique missions. Juliana or Gary, do you feel the same? Do you think the public sector does have unique challenges, or we can just paint a broad brush across them both and call it done?
I'll let Juliana go first.
Thanks, Gary. Absolutely challenges that are unique. And I would just start with the stakes are high. The stakes of the interests of the public sector and the things that governments and agencies do and protect and provide. There's not a lot of room for error. Now, you could make that same argument for a lot of the major businesses around the world, but when we're talking about national defense, national security, providing water and utilities and all of those kinds of things, the stakes are pretty high. And the public interest and the inspection from across the world is always on. There's never a relaxation in watching what is happening in the public sector. And I think that just adds a whole nother level of urgency, and we better get this right element that doesn't persist across the majority of the private sector. But Gary, you have of course a broader view across the private sector than I do, but I think that's a really unique piece of the public sector that we definitely focus on here as Splunk.
For sure. And I think I 100% agree with you that the stakes are higher. And the way I look at it is Splunk needs to be a very good partner to the US government and other governments around the world where we can help drive that resilience. And so, I'm very excited about the work we're doing. And I think it's really important to have that cooperative relationship with the U.S. government. And again, I think we're at the beginning of that journey, not the end of that journey. I think we're at the very beginning, and there's more that can be done because I am 100% convinced that the threat environment is not going to get better anytime soon. And so we need to have arms linked and cooperate to drive better outcomes.
I don't disagree. And we've been seeing this, we've started off with a lot of US-centric government partnerships, but we're actually expanding. Actually, one of our co-hosts today, Kirsty Payne, is formerly of the UK public sector as well. And she's also our fellow for the World Economic Forum in Geneva. So we're really expanding that basis to see this bigger global view. Now, we have one question before we move on to the quiz section of the day. This is Juliana's, and I'm very excited by this. What I would love for you both to answer, go in the depths of your soul here, which movie or TV series has the most fun representation of the public sector, and +5 points if it is a Navy reference, Gary, as Juliana and I are both former squids, NCIS, down Periscope, Battleship, Run Silent, Run Deep. Any one of those, of course, will be a winner. Juliana, we'll give Gary a second to think here.
Okay.
What are you going for?
Yeah, maybe NCIS. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll take it. It's a Navy reference. Juliana, yours.
Come on, I have to go with Top Gun, and that includes the first one and Maverick. I was a helicopter pilot, so we loves us some fighter pilots and making jokes about them. And Gary, I don't know if you know this, but this is considered shooting their watch down when they tell these stories about there I was. So going with Top Gun all day.
My only experience with pilots on the aircraft carrier was they used to drive golf balls off the back, and we could get balls for shotguns by shooting the balls out of the air. So it was a little bit of a dual purpose use there. So it was quite a bit of fun. In typical Surge Coffee Talk fashion, we're going to wrap up with a bit of a game where the points are completely meaningless and you win absolutely nothing other than fame or damnation. Cyber is well known for wonky acronyms and ridiculous company names, and we're not going to point to Splunk here for that one. So we're going to ask you a list of terms, and your job is to determine who is real or fake. And our lovely production elves in the background will probably put some sort of counter on to see who wins. And we're going to go through the first one. Juliana, we'll start with you as the winner of the movie challenge. 0-day hash. Find the hash before your machines are compromised. Real or fake?
I'm going to say fake.
Gary?
Fake.
That is absolutely real. Fun fact. There we go. Online Operation Kill Chain describes the steps threat actors go through to acquire a foothold online, disguise their assets, and evade detection. Juliana?
I think that's real.
Gary?
Yeah, I do real.
Absolutely real, designed by the former one of the creators of the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, who now does online disruption at Meta. Wonderful human being. Quantum AI for your security analytic needs of the future. Juliana?
I'm going to say, I've heard of this, real, but too good to be true, if I can give a disclaimer.
Gary, thoughts?
I'm going to say fake on that. The way you described it is fake.
The way I described it is fake, but the term is real, so you both get points on this one, I feel like. That's solid. Which one of these is not a security marketing acronym? XDR, NDR, ZDR, or EDR?
I'm going to go with NDR.
Gary, thoughts here?
ZDR.
ZDR is correct. That is the only one, and I actually had to spend about 10 minutes to make sure that I wasn't wrong there. So
no, I actually was going to go look at a website because like they may know better than might be using that.
Our quantum AI detection would have found your cheating, Gary, and it would have been embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say Gary has a bit of an advantage over me, so
maybe a little bit on that one, but not at the other public sector.
It's a little bit on that one. SOAR bots, using bots to automate your SOC and elevate the mundane to the cloud.
SOAR bots. Fake.
Fake. Gary?
I'm going to do fake. I can imagine someone thinking that's a good idea, but let's go with fake.
That is fake, and I am now concerned that I'm going to get scooped for RSA 2023. We're just going to see these all across the vendor floor.
Somebody's going to talk about that. Ryan, somebody's going to be talking about that.
It's going to be horrible. We in the cybersecurity world love cognitive thought models because it sounds really smart and fancy. One of my favorite is we have a predilection to do geometric ones. And so which one of these geometric cognitive thought models is not real? Pyramid of pain, pyramid of joy, diamond model, or the octagonal attribution model?
I'm just going to pick one because I was a history major, whatever the diamond one was.
Gary?
Do your first two.
Pyramid of pain or pyramid of joy?
Pyramid of joy.
Yep, that is the fake one. That is the, oddly enough. And finally, which one of these is not a real threat actor group? Evil Corps, Deputy Dog, Dancing Murphys, Snake Mackerels, Inky Squid, Beagle Boys, Strong Pity, Cobalt Dickens, or Cactus Pete?
They sound like military operations.
They are all real. And it's one of the ridiculous things about the cybersecurity world. Those are all absolutely real names. One of them, Dancing Murphys, is named after a friend of mine who got up on his desk and danced when he found the adversary group. So there we go. And the final one here, this was actually written by Audra Streetman, one of the lovely hosts of Coffee Talk with Serge. Pick one which doesn't belong. Smishing, fly fishing, or vishing. This is your Cybersecurity Awareness Month training from October.
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing.
Fly fishing, Gary?
Fly fishing, yeah.
Also, that is correct. You two both did absolutely wonderful on this. I'm devastated fly fishing doesn't work. And once again, I do feel like we're going to see that at RSA coming up soon. So there we go. That's all we have time for today, mostly because Gary's a very busy man and it's 6 p.m. here where I am. So it's time to go have a glass of wine.